Unique people leading unique lives shape and inform Iowa City. This community is enhanced by these women and men who live in our midst, working, teaching, creating. Welcome to a series of conversations with people who have stories to tell. Join my guests and me, Ellen Buchanan, in a series of interviews called One of a Kind. June Braverman, my guest on One of a Kind, has been in Iowa City for over 45 years. During those decades, she was a student at Iowa, earning a bachelor's, master's, PhD. She taught English and speech at Regina High School, served as director of the Center for Conferences and Institutes at the University of Iowa, assistant director of development at Hancher Auditorium, a development consultant for the Iowa Humanities Board, and was a program specialist for the Iowa City Johnson County Senior Center. June is currently the director of Kirkwood Community College's Continuing Education for Johnson County. Her special interests include the community theater, the Johnson County Democratic Women, the Convention Bureau, Agudas Achim Women, the Oak Knoll Retirement Home Chorus, and if to find the time, she finds the time to direct the talented and generous company of singers called the Ronald McDonald Players. This group performs and raises money for the Ronald McDonald House, and they've earned about $45,000 thus far, which is quite an accomplishment. For her contributions to our community, June received the Senior Center Woman of Distinction Award and the Saratoma Service to Mankind Award. She's traveled extensively, 8 trips to El Salvador, a trip to the Orient, Europe, and various islands. In addition to her many activities and careers, June is the mother of 4 children, Bob, Robin, Melanie, and Tom, and a grandmother of 4. My goodness, June, when do you sleep?
Well, some of those activities, I have to tell you, are long since gone and part of my deep past in Iowa City. And so I do as much as I can, given my age.
Oh, all right. Let's start your story at the beginning. I know you grew up in Dubuque.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your first family and their influence on you.
Well, education was very important. I had a number of male cousins who had indeed gone to college and done advanced degrees, mostly in law. I think we have 14 lawyers in the family. I was the first young woman to be encouraged to go to school for something other than finding a husband, which was pretty typical in the 1950s. And my dad insisted that since he had not had the opportunity, that I should be able to earn a living when I graduated college. I think in those days it meant you were a teacher or a nurse.
And you have a sister?
I have just one sibling, a sister, who still lives in Dubuque.
Okay.
And I'm known as the quiet one in the family, so.
June.
Yes.
I don't believe it.
Oh, yes.
Were you into drama in
yes.
High school too?
I had a fabulous high school teacher who was also our speech coach, and so I had ample opportunity to develop speaking skills. I was a debater in high school and did public address and all those types of things, and got to act some. So that was my start.
And many people don't know that one of your many talents, that you love to drum.
Oh yes, I was an all-state drummer in a group called the Black Cat Quintet. Can you believe that one? All females who were snare drummers.
And you took that interest in music and started something at the Senior Center. Didn't you a band?
Oh yes. Well, I didn't start it all by myself, but I did read in one of our journals about a wonderful group that had been formed in conjunction with Eastman School of Music. And it was to prove that seniors, or disprove that seniors could have the physical stamina and the mental endurance to play in a band again. And so I checked with Steve West of West Music, to see if we could do something like that at the senior center, probably modified. The short of a long story is that Steve had just been to a national meeting and had met the director, and they were going to do his group, which was the National Association of Music Merchants, was going to sponsor 4 model senior bands across the country. And so I wrote a very quick little proposal, and because we were already very active in the arts at the senior center, we were one of the first 4 bands in the country. And our first group, I think we had 27 people, and that has now grown to 58, I believe, all within 2 years. They said we would be playing within 6 months, and by gosh, they are. And of course, I was very selfish because I thought, ooh, I want to play drums again, and this will be my opportunity. And unfortunately, I left for my new position before I got a lesson under my belt. So I'm looking forward to retiring someday
and playing in
the band is fabulous. It's just wonderful.
And do they just perform at the senior center?
Oh, no. They've been all over the state. They've been at the Governor's Conference on Aging in Des Moines. They've performed in Cedar Rapids, numerous places in Iowa City. They're very popular, and well, they should be.
Great. Now, June, when you came to Iowa, you got your bachelor's here in speech, and then you got your master's, and you went and got your PhD.
Oh, yeah, but not all at once.
Not all at once.
No,
this was over a decade or so.
Right.
And you were a speech pathology major?
I started as a speech education major and finished that and decided maybe I wanted to be in this brand new field called speech pathology, and that was how I met Spree Spriestersbach, who after all of these years was my advisor, my mentor, and now one of my superstars in Ronald McDonald. So I switched to speech path thinking I would be able to get probably more opportunities for employment. But because I married the day after I graduated college and was to remain in Iowa City, jobs were still very limited. And so I think my first job was as a speech therapist in Cedar County, which I hated. And I was anxious to go back to regular classroom speech.
Well, you have had, like I said in my introduction, quite a few careers. A lot of wonderful jobs. Do you just love starting something and kind of seeing it unfold and come to fruition? And is that the kind of the challenge for you?
Yes, I drive myself insane. I always think, oh my gosh, think of what could happen here. And when I came to the conference center, we doubled the number of conferences in a year and soon expanded to doing national meetings all over the country, and we did several abroad as well. There's a special challenge at digging out something that can grow and establishing what it is and exciting other people about doing it. And then sitting back and watching them all just develop and do great things.
Have you, you've been with Hancher, you've been the Senior Center, you've been at Regina. Has there been one job that you just loved, or have you loved them all?
Well, I've loved everything, but given my druthers, as we say,
yes,
I would still be in the classroom probably. It was exciting. Every day was something new and something totally different. Again, I was able to develop my own curriculum and to try new things that I had never done before. I was able to do musicals made for a stage that were designed for a stage that we didn't have. I always cast everybody, including the priests, and sometimes Father Benda's dog made it into a couple variety shows. Katie was the dog, and she sang the song. It was just a grand experience, and the kids were responsive. And as I have stayed in the community and meet these people on the street and see them in their roles, I had very little part in their lives, but I knew them when they were youngsters and just in that formulating period, and you can't help but feel that maybe you had a little influence somewhere on someone's life.
Did you get burned out, or?
Well, I think I was at a stage with a master's degree in communications that I needed, frankly, to earn more money, and it was a heavy burnout. And my children were in high school, and I was spending 99% of my time with everybody else's children and
And
having
not
a
your
great
own.
time and not my own.
So it's
And
time
so I
for
thought
a
maybe,
change.
and when you live in Iowa City, it's just so easy to go to school. It's right here. So I thought, okay, I will go back and retool and decide what I want to be when I grow up.
And now you have this new job with
Oh, it's
Kirkwood.
great.
Tell me, what are the challenges with this job?
Well, I came in again to a community education program, which had not been terribly exciting. I think Kirkwood, maybe in the early days, had a little bit of a complex of the big brother, the University of Iowa, right around the corner, and maybe a little image suffering. And I thought, oh boy, I loved Kirkwood courses. When my kids were young, I learned how to sew for children at Kirkwood, and I took dance courses and phys ed. Not that I was big into phys ed, but those were the days when we did exercise. Well, everybody exercises except for me now. But those were the days when housewives got out at night, and we did great stuff. And so I thought, gee, this is a wonderful opportunity to build a program. And we have, I think, 150 teachers now in our stable of teachers, some of whom have taught straight through since I came, others who are brand new. The types of things we're teaching has just expanded. I mean, people call in and say, could you possibly find a teacher for yada-da? And, in Iowa City, we're so fortunate because there are so many talented people and so many with some time to give.
Yes.
Heavens knows we can never pay them what they're worth to teach. This is not a big money-making adventure, but they're doing it because they love teaching. They like the responsiveness, and so we've offered just wonderful things that I'm so proud of.
I mean,
Well, who would believe 25 people would want to study Dante's Inferno? But when you have Valerie Ligorio, of course they want to come. John McLaughlin's just going to offer Meet Will Shakespeare. We've had such stars. Jan Freeman has had great success with the Brontes, which she's doing another 2 sessions of. There are people who want to learn these things. And there are retired faculty people, there are young people in town who can teach everything from bird watching to Dante's Inferno.
You love this job.
Oh, well, it's very exciting. How could you not love it?
June, I just was wondering who or what has had a major influence on you. We've talked about your career and your parents instilling this love of learning, and we're going to get to your children soon. I want to hear about their stories too. Who or what has influenced you?
Well, I would have to say that my children have had a tremendous influence on me in helping me to grow and to understand. I came from a very sheltered environment. Good heavens, I always joke in the Catholic community that until I came to college when I was 18, I had no idea that Catholics were a minority religion because I lived in Dubuque and everybody I knew was Catholic. I led a very sheltered life. And coming to Iowa City, 90 miles away, which, in those days we thought was Sin City, and everybody drank out of little flasks and paper bags that we carried hither and yon. I think coming to Iowa City was a great influence, and actually growing up intellectually in Iowa City and being exposed to all that one finds here. I think Dottie Ray has probably been one of the strongest influences on my life in mentoring, in helping me develop in some very easy way for her, unbeknownst to me, that gave me a lot of courage and self-confidence and helpful hints all along the way. And so she's my role model. And I'll never be Dottie Ray, but I will try to be what she'd like me to be.
Oh, that's a lovely, lovely story about her. Tell me, you mentioned your children influencing you. Give me where they are and what they're about.
My son Bob, who is the eldest, is the owner, director, etc. of Friendly Farm, which is just south of the high V. And he's an organic farmer, and he's had this dream for many, many years and started out in the state of Washington and has done beautiful and wonderful things and knocked himself out to make us all understand the importance of eating healthy and the dangers of pesticide, etc. And I'm extremely proud of him. And it's been his mission to convince the world. And this was long before organics and the co-op even, where he sells his things, was around. It was a belief that he got on a trip with his dad to Guatemala and El Salvador when he was about 14 or 15. And he learned about that kind of farming from a priest up in the mountains. So he has broadened my perspective in many senses. My daughter Robin, who I call the revolutionary, the worst baby of them all, went down to El Salvador many, many years ago. She just finished a 10-year stint living there as a human rights worker, and then became a journalist and a teacher in El Salvador. And through my trips, visiting her and meeting people who lived in the mountains and the campesinos, I truly understood third world countries and how fortunate we are to live in this country. And the level of joy that people accomplish in their lives with nothing that we would consider worthwhile, with the terrible trials of daily living and poverty and disease and all the terrible things that come with it, but hopeful, joyful, loving, caring. And so over a period of about 8 trips, I was able to meet fabulous people, and I thank Robin for that, because if she hadn't had the inspiration somewhere to dedicate herself to making a mark down there, I would not have had that opportunity. My third child, Melanie, is a writer and an artist, and she has brought great joy, obviously, to all of our lives. Her first book was just published.
Just read about that.
And has had some nice reviews. And
it's set in Iowa.
Well, it's set
sort
in
of.
kind of Iowa
City.
City-ish in the area. And my youngest son, who is a new father and has our first little girl, we have 3 wonderful boys and now this little princess, is finishing a graduate degree in severely handicapped students, and he's worked with behavior problems and physically challenged people, and that again has had tremendous influence on my thinking. Although, as I said, I was not thrilled with special education as a speech therapist. I'm very taken with the dedication and the love that it takes to do this kind of work. So, you know, I sound like the typical proud Jewish mother, but I really am. They're wonderful individuals. Collectively, they're terrific, and they've given me grandchildren. Which
that's some adventures. I don't want to get. I want to get the camera to show that picture of you and your daughter Robin, and you're crossing a creek river.
Crossing the river Tarola, yes.
Yes.
In nice weather. We were on our way to a guerrilla encampment. That was in, I think, 1989 or 1990. And we had had a harrowing trip. All the journalists had gone from the city, and we had all the right paperwork from the government. However, they stopped us at all these military checkpoints and harassed us. And my letter from Dave Nagel went down the tube at the first place, and my driver's license went at that. I was like, I hate to be an ugly American, but my congressman will hear about this. They really were not terribly thrilled. We finally got to the river, which we had to cross to get up the mountain to the guerrilla camp, and lo and behold, Robin said, "Oh, not to worry, there's a rowboat." Well, bananas, there was not a rowboat. And if the tide is low, she said, we can just wade across. Well, I'm not a swimmer, number one, and the thought of crossing any river just didn't appeal to me. Well, lo and behold, the river was raging. It was way up. There was to be no wading, and the only way to get across was in this little caboosey thing that natives...
Basket.
It's a basket, and natives at either end pulled. and they weighed less than I did, both of them collectively, and I thought, oh my God, and they're going to get me across. And they took us 3 at a time, and there were sometimes 80 to 150 people waiting. It was the only transportation across the river because the Army had knocked out the bridge. I think they had bombed it. So that was the great trip across the river to Rolla with them saying, you go first. And I kept saying, are you kidding? No, I'm not going to do this. And you had to climb a rocky slope. And of course, being the perfect mother tourist, did I wear pants? No, I had on a little cotton skirt and a t-shirt and just, the little bag that I'm carrying. Once we got across, it was climbing up the mountain slope, number 1, to get to solid footing. And on top of that, we then had like a 4-mile hike up to the village, and it poured the entire time we were there. No roads, no streets, nothing, no electricity. It was a very interesting trip.
Well, your children are stretching you, aren't they?
Right.
That was
I learned
one
to
of those
sleep on
times.
a concrete floor with 12 other journalists in a room, and that was the accommodation for the evening.
Good for you. Oh, that's a wonderful story. You've got quite a few themes running through your story,
Right.
June, and one seems to be the stage, the theater, performing. You've directed, you've acted. And now you've been, for I think over a decade, the director of the Ronald McDonald Players. Tell me what this has meant to you.
It's a very important part of my life. I would never have made it on Broadway, God knows. Probably not even in Peoria. I'm lucky.
Will it play in Peoria?
Right, will it play in Peoria? I think I've run the gamut of my luck and talent early in the stages here at Iowa City. I learned by doing. Actually, I had no training in theater other than high school experience. Because we are Iowa City, we get to work with fabulous people at community theater, and we had directors from university theater and professionals that helped us along the way. And then I had my hit and run shows at Regina, as I called them. I had no idea. The first set we built out of drywall. Little did I know you couldn't move it once you build it. What did I know about stagecraft? They still laugh about that. I think it's still standing there somewhere.
Still standing there.
Because they couldn't move it. I was able to do things here and to try new things in theater that were great fun. And that included a couple shows at community theater. I was not a terribly good actress. I think I had a rotten review as Mame. Almost killed the guy because he turned out not to know much about theater. He worked in the same division of continuing education. And I said, my God, I ought to have you fired. You can't even write. There were so many better things you could have criticized while you were at it. But I've had the opportunity to try those things. Tap dancing, when I turned 40. And there was a wonderful studio, and I had the opportunity to dance, and suddenly we were the darlings of all the geriatrics that we were doing the nursing homes. I think we danced a couple years for Stars in the Bars downtown and got hooted by the college students.
How fun.
Well, absolutely.
Oh.
It was like watching their mothers. I've almost forgotten the question, but
About
yes,
Ronald
I had
McDonald
Ronald
Players.
McDonald. Well, this all led up to this very gutsy endeavor of, Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney saying, oh, we could have a show and we could raise money for Ronald McDonald. And all of a sudden we had 250 people and took over Hampshire for 2 nights. And it was a phenomenal success. And why? Because it was community people, people that you knew.
You said
and
250
loved.
people.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And they all have relatives.
Oh, my
they're all your
gosh. Oh,
friends.
yes. We only cast people who had at least 4 living relatives who could come and take up seats, so it worked very well.
Yes.
And then, of course, everyone said afterwards, oh, my gosh, if you could just do these things all the time. We love Broadway music. Well, you can't schlep 250 people to, a state convention of realtors. And so we broke down into a small group, which actually I think we were already putting together in community theater. And that original group set out to entertain, as I said, weddings, funerals, and bar mitzvahs, anybody who would have us. And some groups, like in the dental college, have had us at least once a year, all of these years. And I think this is my 15th year. So,
And you practice every
and every Sunday night,
Sunday. They come to your house,
they
I
come to
read.
my house, pardon me, yes, and help themselves to coffee. And sometimes when we're all feeling thin, we do treats. And actually, that has become my second family, and we are a family. We celebrate each other's birthdays and cry at each other's sorrows and laugh at each other's successes. And on stage, there's a chemistry that I've never seen it anywhere in ensemble playing. And it's what makes our group. We are not brilliant performers. I don't have brilliant musical arrangements. In fact, one of these days we're going to be arrested probably for doing this. But there's a sense of purpose, number one,
And you
because of the house. And we all believe in it very strongly. And again, it is an outlet for each of us. Amy Canellis goes off in her daytime job. We all go to our daytime jobs. We're totally absorbed with family, with work problems. And when you come together and you know you're doing something like that, it's magic for me. It is.
Like
and so, yes, that is my pet.
Tell me, I'm really interested, June, about pivotal points in people's lives, or when we shift in our thinking about things. Did you have something in your life that was fairly
I think
pivotal?
so. I probably had a number of them. The most significant was getting divorced. My generation got married to be forever and to be taken care of, even though we had our little college degree and God forbid we could go to work. I think that probably was a very definitive turning point for me. And all of a sudden I grew up, I knew who I was, I knew what I had to do socially, economically, financially, as a single parent. I think the challenges change in your life. And my wonderful, wonderful ex-mother-in-law, who is still a very dear friend, always has said to me, "You're so fortunate that you got divorced because you would never have gone back to school or done all of these crazy things. You would have been too tied to, routine and traveling with your husband and doing all of those things." And I've always said to her, "You're absolutely right." I'm not grateful that I'm divorced. On the other hand, it was a turning point, and I gained enough self-confidence. In a million years, I never thought I was smart enough to go back to school and to really do a definitive degree. And it happened. It happened.
Oh.
Not because I was a genius, but because somewhere along that line I grew up and knew what my goals were. Well, I never thought I was going to pass the GREs, for heaven's sake. However, I don't know if I did to this day, but I did get through. You're able to accomplish things once you pass that kind of turning point in your life.
What do you think are your greatest strengths? Is it your energy? You seem to have a lot of energy, June.
Well, you should see me after 5.
Oh, really? Okay.
After 5, unless I'm doing something musical in the evening, forget it. I have probably slept, I should never admit this, through the best things that I've died to see at Hancher, only because I'm so tired by the time I get there. I think, oh my God, if I were just home. I think one of my strengths has been a sense of humor, which has gotten me out of a lot of difficulties, whether here or in El Salvador, or fighting off slugs on Bob's first organic farm, and grinding flour at 2 o'clock in the morning. I think I have a really good perspective, and the sense of humor loosens people that I have to deal with to the point that they think she's either insane so she's okay, or she's very strange and I'll be able to cope with her. So I don't think I'm very intimidating, and that has really helped. I adore people. I like being with people. And, I miss my friends at the senior center. For people to know that they're capable of doing more than they ever thought they were, to me, is a great goal in life, and that has to do with lifelong learning.
And that's my last question. That is quite a theme, another theme of yours, is this lifelong, like you say, learning, or love of learning. Where did you get this, or is it just...
Well, I think this is family, and again, it's the Iowa City environment. And you know as well as I do, you could go to a lecture every evening, you could go to 3 book groups. There are wonderful musical things to partake of. You're just inundated, and I've never taken advantage of half of them. And I think there's energy in this environment, and it means that you don't have to be old, you don't have to be bored, you don't have to be lonely. There is something for everybody in this town, and helping people to find what it is that they're interested in and to provide an opportunity to do that is kind of what I like doing best. When someone called in today and said, you know, I'd really like to be a clown. And I said, well, my God, I would be too. I'd like to be too, and some people think I am. But what is it we want to do about this? Well, let's go find a clown teacher. And I know there is a clown teacher in town. Maybe
So
there are
you're
10 other people who want to be a clown. Heavens
A
only knows.
clown class.
Why not? We've done everything else.
Sure. Oh, you are at the right place right now, I think, with your talents.
I think this is probably the best I could have asked for.
Yeah.
And so I'm thrilled to be the age I am and doing what I'm doing at Kirkwood.
Well, thank you for coming today and being
Thank you.
my guest. My guest on One of a Kind has been the well-known June Braverman. Her story is filled with love of learning, adventures, entertaining others, music, theater, varied careers, and lots of humor. Her energy, creativity, and commitment influences the young and the not so young. For her many contributions, June was awarded the Senior Center Woman of Distinction Award and the Saratoga Service to Mankind Award. June Braverman is one of a kind.